Welcome to the Board of Education business meeting and budget public hearing of Tuesday, September 27th, 2011. We have been in closed session for the purposes of collective negotiations and approval of the minutes of 8:10, 8:16, and 9:7. Closed session minutes were approved. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you. If it's all right with the board, I'd like to rearrange the agenda just a little bit. We have some very important young men and women here with us this evening that we would like to honor. And rather than make them sit through our very interesting budget hearing, I thought we would recognize them first. You're certainly welcome to stay and hear it later if you would like. But I would like to turn over now the recognition of the J. Kyle Braid Scholars to Dr. Pernot.
Yes, it's really a pleasure to recognize our students. If you could stand up and let me read the proclamation that is being declared this evening. Whereas the mission of the J. Kyle Braid Leadership Foundation is to identify and select young adults who exhibit leadership potential, have a strong sense of moral values, and possess the compassion necessary to improve their world. And whereas the J. Kyle Braid Leadership Camp experience in Villa Grove, Colorado, is only offered to a select few high school students who have been screened through a highly competitive process. And whereas your community high school students Grace Haggard, Billy Marquise, Matthew Parks, and John Shipman were selected to participate in the Braid Leadership Camp under the guidance of positive role models and trained professionals, and have developed leadership skills that promote responsible decision-making and increase self-esteem. And therefore, and whereas this accomplishment brings pride and prestige to your community high school, to District 205, and to our community, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education and the administration of Elmhurst Community Unit 205 express congratulations to their students for this outstanding achievement. Congratulations, students. I would just ask you if you could just introduce yourself and what year you're in and what your plans are for the future. Small task.
I think Principal Smith is prepared to help us out with this part of it. If you could just come up here and shake all our hands first, and then we'll dismiss you to the principal. Take this one.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Yep. We need you in front of the camera here.
Block me. Block me first. All right. Thank you to the Board of Education, and thank you for giving us just a couple of minutes to meet our students, to meet the Braids, and they're going to tell you just very briefly a little bit about their experience at the ranch, and we really appreciate during a very busy meeting that you'll allow us to do that. And the students will talk to you about the experience, but the foundation was formed to help build leadership with young athletes, sophomore students from about 40 high schools. We're very fortunate to be part of it, and the selection process is very intensive and very competitive, and we have dozens and dozens of students each year who are nominated, and the students you see here are truly the top. Recently, the Chicago Tribune ran a story about a drinking incident that occurred at another high school, and they wanted to ask students at York about the reasons that they drink and things like that, why students drink. And instead, we introduced the reporter to this group of students so they could talk to students about why they make good choices. And I'm sure you read that article, but I brought you extra copies just in case. You didn't get that beautiful picture on the front of our girls. I want to introduce first Grace Haggart. And Grace is the daughter, you can wave so that everyone knows, is the daughter of Micheline, a teacher. She is in the upper half of 6 children. She plays the French horn in our symphonic band, is a swimmer, and plays water polo. She has formerly served as the president in her church youth group. She said in her interview that she wanted to have Challenge Day for every student at York because she believes we should build a greater connection and build a stronger school community. Grace's role models are her mother, who's here tonight, and her grandfather, William, who's also here, who she said have taught her the importance of using leadership to serve others. Her grandfather is a former teacher and dean. He's here as well. And he says Grace always puts her welfare below all others, family, the elderly, and friends in need. Grace Haggard. And this is Allie Marcus, who lives with her sister and brother-in-law, Amy and Michael Verperman, and her new Vesperman, and her new nephew. Allie is an outstanding student at York, also a swimmer and a water polo player. Allie identified her sister, who's also her guardian, Amy, as her hero. But it apparently goes both ways because her sister Amy, who's also here, wrote a beautiful letter of recommendation for her little sister, saying that Allie exemplifies compassion. Though Allie has experienced great loss in her own life, she has always turned her energies toward helping others. And Allie doesn't do anything in a small way, believe me. She independently organized a fundraiser to pay the medical bills of a family who had a terminally ill child. She knitted scarves and mittens for cancer patients. She is a member of our Key Club, Snowball, and a lot of other organizations. She truly puts, ready, the passion in compassionate. And in this way, we believe, and the Braids believe, that Allie truly reflects the goals of the organization. Allie Marcus. And this is Matt Parks, the son of Mary and Jim Parks. He has an older sister, Kayla. He said we don't need to mention her because she's in college, but still. Yeah. All right. In the interview, Matt was asked if he could pick anyone, living or past, who he would like to have dinner with. He said, Miles Davis. Matt identified Riddle and Rettle, that's Bill and Stan, as some of his great teachers at York. Matt's a talented musician in our symphonic and jazz bands and a standout on our cross-country team. And a year ago, I think, ran 25th in the turkey trot. Yeah, I think you did. Matt's hero is a man named Norman at his church, who he said has always inspired him by having a great outlook on life no matter what. His youth minister said, Matt has an amazing ability to work behind the scenes, to thank people for what they've done, compliment them with something positive, and comfort those who are struggling. He has the innate ability to lead with integrity. Matt Parks. Last but not least, John Shipman. John is the son of Scott and Peggy Shipman. He has 2 younger brothers, Matt and Tom. Important influences for John at York include Challenge Day, the football program, and the Pride organization. In his resume, Mr. Smith, John cited technology as one of his concerns. He said that although it has many benefits, he believes it's also caused kids to avoid direct communication, and he believes it can cause them to be too idle. He believes that students can and should benefit from more physical activity and authentic communication. One of John's role models is Eric Westerberg, a York grad and a Braid scholar, who now attends and plays football at Augustana. He says they keep in touch every day, and John models his life after Eric's. John says he wants to be a good role model to younger students. He aspires to be a high school teacher and a football coach. You're hired. John Shipman. This is John Shipman. And now my pleasure to get out of the way and introduce our Braids to share briefly their experiences.
Okay, so I'm Grace. So now we all know each other. So I'm just going to talk a little about kind of the beginning of the organization and the foundation and how it started. So it was started by Ken and Colleen Braid, and they were originally from the Chicago area, so little fun fact. And they had a son, and his name was J. Kyle Braid, and the foundation is named after him. So their son, Kyle, he was actually a lot like us. He was a leader in his school and community, and he was a football player on the football team, clearly. And so in that way, we all share a lot in common with him. Going into his junior year, Kyle was told that he needed to really step up on the team and get better and faster and stronger all really quickly. And so he actually turned to steroids, and he took his life through those choices. So it is in his name and memory that this foundation is and goes out through. The Braids, after this occurrence in their life, decided that they wanted to do something to take teens who did have the leadership qualities, and they wanted to kind of teach them and help them become better leaders and to be their best so that they could go and help others and help their peers in their situations, whether it be steroids or other drugs and alcohol. So it's through that organization that we were taught other skills, such as, just solid leadership skills, and also about the dangers of drugs and alcohol and steroids. And so, that's kind of the basis of the foundation that we were able to take a part of. So, yeah.
The selection process for the J. Kyle Braid Award is very long and kind of scary for people who are selected. It starts with 8 boys and 8 girls nominated by either their coaches, guidance counselors, or teachers after the first semester of their sophomore school year. After that, you fill out a resume that they give you. And then after you fill that out, you have an interview process, which is maybe the scariest thing I've gone through in my life. You have, everyone that's part of this staring right at you, and you have to answer all these questions. And after they ask you the question, they write down your answer, and you're like, is that good or bad? For example, one of the questions I was asked was, if you were a fruit, what would it be, and why would you choose that? And I went with maybe the most pleasing answer, and that was I would be a pineapple because it's 2 different stories. You got a rough outside, but a nice, sweet inside, so you don't judge a book by its cover. But after that, you find out. It was pretty quick to find out if you made it or not, and it was a very fun way of finding out. That's it.
Now, when we were all selected at the bright age of 15 or 16, we obviously knew everything about the world that there was to know. So, you'd think, why would we even need to go to this ranch? But really, the ranch was probably one of the most memorable experiences of all our lives, I think we would agree. It's a week just action-packed with a lot of stuff. You have a lot of activities that are fun. You have whitewater rafting, skeet shooting, paintball games, and you have just all these activities throughout the day that really by 10 or 11 at night, you just want to go to bed. You don't even want to stay up and talk to anybody else. But then aside from those fun activities, we also have over 30 hours of classroom leadership training in the style of a college course, and it was taught by 2 certified teachers. And through that, we really learned what our impact is as a leader and how we can further that impact and really get our word out and just reach everybody possible. And we learned the 7 qualities of good leadership. We learned qualities of bad leadership. One of the things that was really helpful to me was stress management exercises that, just kind of help us relax because, if you're a leader, you obviously have a lot of pressure. And throughout the week, the whole time, you're just thrown out of your comfort zone. And that was one of the funnest parts of the whole entire week, was just seeing, you could tell who was, a little bit more comfortable outside their comfort zone and who wasn't. But by the end of the week, everybody was completely comfortable with where they were at. And that was the biggest part, I think, because as a leader, you're always being thrown out of your comfort zone. If you're trying to reach people, everybody's different, and you have to be ready for twists. You have to be ready for, people that may not be easy to deal with. You have to be ready for pretty much anything. And so I thought that was one of the greatest parts, and it was one of the most memorable and educational experiences that we've all been through.
Other than spending an entire week with 18 people we've never met in our entire lives from our conference, we have to come back to school and take what we've learned and apply it to helping our student body and helping everybody else. And a couple things we've planned this year. In the future, we plan to have pink out the pool, because Grace and I both play water polo and swim. And nobody really goes to water polo games. So we're doing a breast cancer fundraiser at a water polo game, and we're gonna all wear pink and sell t-shirts and bracelets and stuff to raise money for not only breast cancer, but our foundation as well. Last week was homecoming week, and we did this activity called Hands Off the Bottle, and we had everybody in our lunch periods come and paint their hand red on a piece of paper if they pledged to remain drug and alcohol free for the rest of their high school career. So we have, I think it was 200 hands that we now have to hole punch them and hang them up, because we promised people they would be displayed. So we're going to do that during Red Ribbon Week, which, if you don't know what Red Ribbon Week is the drug and alcohol free week of schools nationwide. So we're hanging that up. We also plan a fundraiser in the spring with garage sale items, and so if you have anything you don't want, set that aside, because we'll use it to sell and make money for our foundation to send the future braids that go this coming summer. We just set a positive example to everyone in our student body, not only by trying really hard in class, but creating alternate opportunities to hang out on weekends versus going to parties, because when we party appropriately. So that's basically what we do at York, and we want to impact not only our school, but the middle schools coming in. We work with the parochial schools, and we work with the middle schools. We have Junior JKB Day, where they come in for an entire day, and we do mini activities, simulations of what we did at the ranch. In the gymnastics balcony, we try to make everything like it was at the ranch, but it doesn't compare. So that's what we do. Thank you for having us.
Thank you all for coming very much. We appreciate being able to honor you this evening. Mr. Pernod has read the proclamation. You all have a copy of it. I have a copy for you, Ms. Smith. And I really can't improve on what you all have said and what you have said about them. But just let me say on behalf of the Board of Education that we are looking to you to be leaders, both at York and in the community. And that is really a great honor and a great responsibility. And I know you've heard that before, but the scholars, the Braid scholars who have come here before you, just happen to be faces that we see again and again in this boardroom as National Merit Scholars, as students earning other academic awards, students earning athletic awards. So we're looking for you. And I know you will meet those expectations. We are very, very proud of you, and congratulations again. We're going to take just a 2-minute break if the students would care to leave. I don't see anybody coming back to hear our budget hearing, which we fully understand. Thanks for coming. We appreciate the parents coming out tonight as well. The next item on our agenda is our budget public hearing, the public hearing on the 2011-2012 annual budget. This is a requirement by law that we have this. I will now call to order this budget hearing and note that there are 7 board members present, none are absent. And I will turn the mic over to Mr. Chris Welton, who will give us a quick overview of this budget.
Good evening. This is the final budget. As you know, last month we talked in great detail about the tentative budget, and we covered the final budget in the Finance Committee meeting last week, so I will quickly go through some of the changes from the tentative budget to the final budget. The first item is on the revenue side, corporate personal property replacement taxes. We were able to get an exact amount from the Department of Revenue on that, and it's a decrease of 12.8% or $43,525. Replacement taxes are normally a direct relationship with the economy, so that is part of the reason for the 12.8% decrease. The other reason is in 2011, this Department of Revenue had a amnesty provision, which they don't have in FY12. The sale of equipment, we sold some very old trucks that didn't run anymore to Victory Auto, and that was the $1,600 increase for the sale of equipment. The CTEI grant, that is the Career Technical Education Grant that's used in the vocational program at York for applied arts with the industrial tech and family consumer sciences. The Title I grant, this is a federal allotment, and it's based on census data of our students, and the federal government increased our allotment by $67,960. The Idea Preschool, that grant is used over at Madison for IEP students in the preschool program. That amount increased by $22,500. The Title II is the Teacher Quality or Professional Development grant in the federal government, decreased that $4,200. The E-rate fund increase, $89,000, is really a timing issue. Last year they were behind, and so there will be some catch-up in FY12, resulting in an increase of $89,000. The $520 increase in the O&M fund was we sold some scrap metal or old equipment for scrap metal. And then just a minor adjustment there in the debt service fund, which will balance things out in as far as transfers. On the expenditure side, we've been talking a lot about position control. This is our 3rd year using the financial software Skyward. Each year we get a little bit better at utilizing Skyward and the software's capabilities. Position control is part of the HR module of the software, which allows you to track and monitor every position by assignment, by building. And it really is great not only for the salary budgeting and tracking, but also benefits. So you can track every benefit for each person by line item. So it really, and some of the reasons why salaries decreased was we had budgeted some positions in 2 different places in the budget. In the grants, for example, special education, so we have an Idea flow-through grant where we had budgeted some aides there, but had also budgeted them in the special education department. Some of those type of things, some places where we had budgeted vacancies, and we had also as we had replaced those people. So we had budgeted some staff in 2 different places in the budget, so we fine-tuned our salaries in order to come up with a more accurate budget for salaries and benefits. The other thing in benefits, we had an unexpected retirement that resulted in a ERO penalty that came up between the tentative and final. So we budgeted for that, and we had left out the budget for the retiree insurance at the tentative, so we corrected that and had a more accurate number for tuition reimbursement. These are just some small items where we saved some money on the towel service. We had left out the keyboarding software. The fingerprinting machine, we have now decided not to move forward with that. It was something we were investigating, but decided the cost was more than the $3,000. It was more like $9,000, and we've talked to the city of Elmhurst. They're upgrading their equipment, and so and they've renewed their commitment to us to provide that service. So so we will continue to work with the city of Elmhurst on fingerprinting. And then the field trips, we had to put some money in there for free and reduced lunch students that for field trips, and we also increased the budget for criminal background checks. We're having a lot more of those than we expected, and the costs related to some of them. We had to use another service for a while, and so it increased our costs related to criminal background checks. A few other changes here. These are similar, where we're fine-tuning the salaries and benefits. And then the capital projects fund, we have a roof masonry project at York, where there was some water damage in a stairwell near the pool. So we have a project to fix the masonry and roof over there at York for $22,100. The Bryan project is that gravel lot across the street from Bryan. We are going to put a fence in there that will make it much more pleasing on the eye for the neighborhood. It'll look a lot nicer, but also it will allow us to move a lot of our maintenance equipment from across the street in the back of the Bryan building and clean up that whole courtyard and move everything within the new fenced-in area. And the maintenance workers or the staff over there, the maintenance guys, are going to move over to the mobile classroom that'll be within the new fenced-in area. And so that has a few real benefits, that project there at Bryan. This is the same as we had in the tentative budget. We're just pointing out the mix of revenues, which really the result is very flat revenues when 80% of your revenue is property taxes linked to the CPI, and state and federal revenues are flat to decreasing. That really results in a flat revenue stream. On the expenditure side, we have 79% of our budget tied up in staffing. As we are a service organization, that's very common that you would have most of your expenditures in staffing. And it's tough to keep our pool of expenditures in line with the flat revenue stream when you have enrollment increasing and you have mandated programs every year that change and increase the needs. So on the expenditure side, benefits and tuition tend to increase faster than CPI and those sorts of things, which result in expenditures going up at a faster rate than revenues. Overall, our total budget had revenues of 109,743,968 and expenditures of 109,494,023. So revenues in total have exceeded expenditures in this budget by 249,945. But the operating funds, which are the funds we closely monitor because those are where most of our money is. The revenues were just short of expenditures by 48,419, but it's really extremely close to a break even in the operating funds. Real fast, this shows that fund balances have maintained at the same level for FY09 through FY12. So during the time of increasing enrollment, expenditures outpacing revenue, we have maintained our fund balance for that 4-year period. This chart is a summary chart of FY11, but it shows how our cash flows works through the year. The green bars are our fund balances, and the black line is the revenue line. So you can see that our revenues come in June as that black line spikes up, and in September. And so in those two spots, that's where our revenues really increase, but our expenditures are very steady, especially in the months of August through May. June, expenditures go up a little faster because of the additional payrolls in the month of June. The blue line is our target fund balance, which is 25%. That's 25% of the total expenditures in FY11. But May is always our low point. In FY11, May we had 3,159,039. So that is the reason really that we want the 25% fund balance, so that at the low point in May, we don't need to do short-term borrowing, which would be tax anticipation warrants. And the reason we try to avoid tax anticipation warrants is that just adds expenditures to our operating funds, so it compounds the problem of expenditures outpacing revenues. As far as the next steps, part of the Finance Committee, they're looking for monthly financial reports that we can really monitor budget to actual and actual this year compared to actual prior year. We're going to do that by object. So break it down: salaries, benefits, purchase services, supplies, and on a monthly basis. So we're going to track and monitor our actual to budget and prior on a monthly basis. The auditors will be coming out in another month or two. It's now looking like they will be at the November board meeting, not October, but it should make the October Finance Committee meeting. We're going to have PMA do our 5-year projections, where they're looking for the budget and the audit, staffing, contracts, enrollment projections, and so forth. We're going to have them come in January. So that is the plan for that, and we will very soon, in October, begin the preparation of the 2011 tax levy. And that is it for my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Welton. Are there any questions from board members on this budget? This budget, as you know, is not new to us. It was starting to be put together under the old administration. We've seen pieces of it along the way throughout the summer. We've had a couple of discussions about it. Does anybody have any further questions? Mr. Collins.
I just have one. Mr. Welton, you project that by the end of May, we'll have about $3 million left in cash.
Well, that's what we had in 2011. So I would think it would be similar.
Okay. How confident are you? I mean, that's approximately 3%, a little less than 3% of our total budget. How confident are you that we don't overshoot that and actually have a negative balance?
It's difficult because you don't know the timing of payments. I don't know what confidence level I would put on it, but it is a concern. You know, what if the June 1st property taxes don't come in June 1st? There's a lot of factors that could, the state payments could be late, those kind of things. So I'm not going to bet my salary on it. You know,
Just a point of clarification, I didn't ask you to.
But
I was thinking about it.
no, I expect it to be similar, since the budget is pretty much a break even. I would expect it to be similar, but you know, there are a lot of variables.
Mrs. Ebner.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about a similar topic. We have fund balances, like in June 30th of 11, our fund balance percentage was 29%. And in May, we had $3 million left. If we go down to 25% fund balance, what would our cushion be, like $1 million or less than $1 million? So we're fortunate to be a little bit above the 25% because we could really get in trouble if we get, you know, you're not sure exactly, like we could get really low with that May low point. So
I agree. I would recommend that we stay right where we're at, and so that's why I think that we should continue to try and come up with a balanced budget each and every year in order to maintain that same percentage. Yeah.
Mr. Bloom?
This isn't just you. You know, you give these numbers to PMA. There is an outside service that does our cash management for us that runs these numbers. So I mean, it's a little more precise in that if the assumptions come true. So I mean, Chris is saying I'm not, put my salary on the line for the assumptions, but this is a trend based on a model. You know, there is some science behind it. There is some comfort level to this that if the budget comes in, which is why we have, we really need to stick with a balanced budget. But I don't want, as a finance committee, Chris explained all this to us. We want to report back to you guys that, there is science, there is science behind this, and there are some, professional money managers out there that do cash management for a living that look at our cash balances and what our assumptions are and give us, kind of a degrees of freedom. So we feel comfortable that, we think we're okay. But, to Chris's point, what if the state does? There are some other things we could.
Go ahead, Ms. Ebner.
Other quick question. On, let's see, I guess it was slide 8. I was just wondering, for operations and maintenance fund, our revenues are about $322,000 lower than the expenditures. Is there, I just wasn't sure about that. The expenditures being more than revenues for that line item.
Well, fortunately for us in the operation and maintenance fund, that fund has, on a percentage basis, more fund balance than the other funds. Where, if you look at the ending fund balance there, it's $5 million is the fund balance, and the expenditures in that fund are $9.6 million. So that's like a 55%. Yeah. So that fund, so it's somewhat intentional in that you can allocate your levy in order to and your state aid in ways to make sure that we put the money into the right funds. And so that fund is at a deficit, but we have sufficient reserves in the operation maintenance fund for that deficiency.
Ms. Hirsch.
Thanks, Chris. I just had a couple of questions. And actually, Mr. Bloom, the prior board actually reduced our fund balance ratio. We had been looking to achieve a 30% fund balance ratio. I think it was probably about a year and a half ago that the past board had reduced the 30% fund balance down to 25%. Just a little history. But I did have two questions for you, Chris. One is, the board had received envelope reports I just want to confirm that with the exception of the two pieces that you had outlined in terms of capital projects, we do not have in this year's budget any, I'll put it, medium to large scale maintenance type projects funded in this budget. So the envelope concerns that we had at a variety of schools, I know on our long-term our capital projects, we have a couple of roofs that we have teed up, but at this point in time, this budget does not include any proactive maintenance on our buildings other than our normal custodial cleaning and fixing things as they break. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, thanks. And the second thing is I just want to make sure I'm understanding the position control because there were some large numbers that had moved around. So tell me if this assessment is an accurate assessment. We used projections or estimates in terms of salaries tied to either programs or buildings. And now with position control, we're actually placing individuals with associated salaries and benefits in those buildings. Is that accurate, or can you help me understand this a little bit better? Those are big numbers that we're moving around.
I think in a lot of districts, people look at the overall increase in benefits or overall increase in salaries, and then they increase all the accounts by 1% or 2% or 3%, and that's the way I think we've done it in the past, where now we're looking at every single position and looking at where they are on the salary scale and what benefits that those individuals have. And so it's providing for a lot more precision in the budget to actual, or in the budget, and we expect that our budget to actuals every month will, at the end of the year, we're going to be very close to these salary and benefit numbers.
Okay, so that also helps us when you look at it, whether it's by object, whether you're looking at a building and understanding the salaries in a building, or programmatically. That moves us a step closer to be able to understand the cost of, for instance, the REACH program. How much, we're looking at, this is what we know the accurate cost, right, within a couple dollars, hopefully, of the cost of delivering a particular program, whether it's instrumental music or whether it's gifted education, whether it's special ed. Does position control really help us nail that down, right?
I could.
80%.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're all understanding what the big change. I know that was a significant amount of work, I think, for your team to implement that in a short amount of time. So I think it's very helpful for us to just talk about that for a minute and say, thank you. It's a very positive step in the right direction in terms of discipline and budgeting. So thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank Chris, too, because when I came, it was one of the tasks I gave to Chris almost in the first week. Unfortunately, Chris can tell you, I was at his doorstep. But I think that position control is just critical for a district this size, not to have position control and know where those positions are, how they're tracking, how much programs are costing. To do a budget as sophisticated as we're trying to get to without that kind of position control is just impossible. So I want to thank Chris. They really jumped on it. It's, a lot of it is still working with Skyward to see what we can do. But I think there's great potential there of being able to really track our salary and benefit costs in a variety of ways and have a real-time picture of what is presently going on in the district and what the projections are for the future.
Any other questions for Mr. Welton? Mr. Bloom.
Just one more piece, and it's not really a question. It's just I guess a reminder to everybody now that the budget is final that, there's been a lot of talk about all that went into this budget. There's been a lot of sacrifices. These are a lot of tough choices. There are some choices that none of us were happy to have to make, but we did. There were staff and administration cuts. There were, slightly larger class sizes in order to get our budget balanced, including fees for activities to maintain programs rather than cut programs. The property taxes were assessed at the cap. And we still were able to come up with $1 million to invest in student achievement and growth, too, which we thought was critical to do that. But this balanced budget didn't happen without a lot of work. I know we've talked about it a lot before, but I'd just like to reiterate that in the context of this final budget that's out there, and thank the folks for taking the sacrifice to maintain the solid foundation that this district values and our community values.
Good point. Thank you very much. At this point in the agenda, we are asking for public comments on the topic of the budget. No one has signed up to speak to us about the budget tonight, but if there is anyone right now, I'd be happy to hear your comments. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the budget hearing and return to our regular business meeting. Is there a second? Moved by Mr. Collins, seconded by Mr. McDonough to adjourn the budget hearing and return to our regular business meeting. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. That motion carries. We are back to our regular meeting. Right now on the agenda, we have public comments on anything you want to public comment on. We have several people signed up. I would remind you when you come to the podium to please state your name and address for the record, and to please limit your comments to 3 minutes. I would also remind you that it is not the practice of the board to respond to public comments at this time, but there may be some things that are referred to the administration for follow-up. The first speaker is Katie Padberg. She will be followed by Kristy Pope, if you want to queue up.
Hi, my name is Katie Padberg. I live in Lombard, Illinois. I teach at Sandberg Middle School in Elmhurst. I am an 8th grade social studies teacher. I've taught this will be my 15th year in the district. I'm also the union president of the Elmhurst Teachers Council. As the union president, I'm speaking on behalf of the teachers in District 205. We believe that it is an imperative that the new board and administration work collaboratively with the teachers to achieve excellence here in District 205. An important step would be for the new administration and board to open dialogue with the teachers on a regular basis. The teachers would like to have formal conversations with administrators and board members, as was briefly done in the past. The teachers would also like to have informal conversations with board members and administrators' presence noticed in the classrooms, at recess, and in the lunchrooms. While we recognize that Superintendent Pernot has taken a few of these steps, we would like the board and the new district administrators to get involved in what is happening in all of the buildings, to listen and hear what the teachers and the counselors and the librarians have to say. The following teachers are committed to excellence and want to have their voices heard.
Thank you. Kristy Pope, followed by Jenleben.
Good evening. My name is Kristy Pope. I live in Woodridge, but I teach at Hawthorne School. I've been in the district about 17 years. I teach 2nd grade at Hawthorne. Just to follow up on what Katie said, we believe that the quality of instruction is crucial to student achievement. We believe there is a relationship between the quality of the instruction and the student contact time. However, more contact time does not equate to improved student achievement. We believe students will best be served by research-based instruction and board-approved curriculum based on best practices. We believe that we need time, resources, tools, and support to create the most effective use of contact time through the curriculum and instruction. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Jenleben, followed by Amy Thompson.
Hi, my name is Jenleben. I live in LaGrange Park, but I teach here in Elmhurst at Sandberg Middle School. I teach art. This is my 10th year in the district. As a union, we believe that professional development is key to providing teachers the tools necessary for delivering a quality education to the students of District 205. Teachers should be encouraged to continue their education over the course of their careers. Over half of the 30-plus new teachers hired this year have master's degrees and are receiving recognition accordingly. Yet, experienced, proven teachers within the district who have recently acquired or will shortly acquire master's degrees that have been approved by the district will not receive any recognition of this important milestone. We believe that to attract and retain quality educators requires the district's support and recognition of continuing education. Thank you.
Next speaker is Amy Thompson, followed by Rebecca DAngelo.
Hello, my name is Amy Thompson. I live in Glen Ellen. I am a 13th year York counselor, part of the time as a general counselor, and now as college and career counselor, and my 20th year in education. So it feels pretty good. I, like my fellow District 205 educators, have devoted my life's work to the children and families of this community. We give everything we can to our work, and I voted no on the contract for several reasons, and my peers have indicated they have the same concerns. I want to focus specifically on the numerous pieces of vague contract language. These pieces of the contract that provide very loose guidelines regarding extra duties and extra time open us all up to many potential problems and conflicts. And if there's anything counselors like to avoid, it's conflict. As District 205 educators, we do act professionally to ensure that our students have an engaging, challenging, exciting, and enriching educational and extracurricular experience as they travel from kindergarten, or actually early childhood, all the way to graduation and beyond. We all put in many more hours than are required by our contract. While we might put hours in at school, we also give up evenings and weekends for work that is done from home, during family events, even the Super Bowl, and at our own children's activities. We all give up our planning time and lunchtime to give more to our students. We do so not because it's demanded of us, but because we are professionals and we demand it of ourselves. Over the past few years, we have remained professional despite numerous challenges. While we are hopeful that those years are behind us, this contract does little to ensure that. We believe clear contract language would serve to help in the rebuilding of trust as we strive to move forward with this new administration and board members. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Joan Davis. Sorry, Rebecca DAngelo, and then Joan Davis.
Hi, my name's Rebecca DAngelo. I live in Elmhurst. I've been teaching for 10 years. We believe we have great children, involved parents, and dedicated teachers, and a strong community. We're fortunate to have significant resources. And speaking as a community member, a York parent, a parent of 2 District 205 graduates, and a teacher, we feel we need to work collaboratively to find a solution that is best for our kids. We believe the only way this can happen is by opening the channels of communication and working together in an environment of mutual respect. Thank you very much for your time and listening. Thank
you. Next speaker, Joan Davis, followed by Pat Jangle.
Hi, my name is Pat Annika. I live in Elk Grove, and I've been a teacher in Emerson School, and I've been in the district since 1978. I'm here to speak about the concerns of the elementary teachers, asking to be required to come in earlier than the current contract, and the vagueness of the language in the proposed contract. We were asked to come in 100 minutes earlier per week, which turned into more meetings and less planned time. Now we're being asked to come in yet an additional 80 minutes per week, and again, this has nothing to do with student instructional time. We do not need more meetings before and after school. We do, however, understand the need for the, quote, extension of the elementary school day by 10 to 15 minutes, since District 205 is currently under the state average in elementary academic instruction time by approximately 14 minutes a day, as stated in the press release by the district. Elementary teachers have families, schedules, work schedules with spouses, school events with their own children, and asking us to change and find, if possible, daycare for children even earlier and or later than we currently do is not feasible. Adding additional required time for elementary teachers, especially before and after school, is not necessary. We do work very, very hard. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last speaker is Steve Berchter.
Hi there, everybody. It's nice to see you, see some friends that I know and people that I don't know. I'm Steve Berchter. I taught here as part of the District 205 family for 37 years. You can, for those of you that don't know me, you can think of me as the family member who loves this district and came back during a troubling time with hope that what's said might have something that's worth of your consideration. I grew up in Elmhurst, was a product of the Elmhurst schools, and I had wonderful teachers here that I worked with, teachers that inspired me to become a teacher. In all the time that I worked at Sandberg, I can honestly say that I looked forward to coming there every day to teach. It was a wonderful place. I worked hard for the superb students, their great parents, the excellent staff and administration members throughout all those years. We were an educational family that worked hard to do wonderful things for our students. We had difficult contract times before where there was disagreement and it was challenging, but in families sometimes there are disagreements. But you get through it and keep your focus on what's best for all of the family members, the students, the teachers, the parents, and the school system. We, the teachers and the administration, always worked to do what was right. I was amazed to read that your current teachers are willing to work without a raise in their base pay. What amazing dedication. I've heard what others have said about needed support for the teachers for coursework and lane movement. I'm surprised the sport's even argued. Furthering your education with more college classes only helps the students we serve. I'm saddened to see in the newspapers that District 205 is having these contract problems. For those of us who've loved working with the students and the parents and the teachers and the staff and the administration, board members, it's hard to understand. During some of District 205's best years, for example, the times of two superintendents, I think of Russ Themes and Merle Baker, our district leadership had come up through the school system, and each administrator understood District 205's strengths and areas that needed improvement. Their minds were not that far away from the teachers and students in the classroom. During those times, we negotiated under what was called a win-win philosophy, where both sides worked to achieve the best for our students. No one side totally ever won. But the students did win always. The adults negotiating on both sides knew each other well, had worked together before, respected the other side, and basically liked each other. Both sides were successful in working together to achieve a give and take that benefited the students, teachers, parents, and the entire school system. We've declined since then into an unsuccessful way of negotiation. What happened to that way of doing what's best for the students? Win-win is better than lose-lose any day, especially if you're a student. Perhaps it's also worthy of note that we had a lot of awards and positive news articles from many schools, individual students, and teachers in District 205 during those win-win years as well. Our deserving students got to work with our best teachers. Can I finish? I've got about a paragraph and a half. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
Thanks, Ed. Our deserving students got to work with our best teachers who stayed teaching in the district because of their feeling of job satisfaction and appreciation. We didn't lose anybody. When everyone works together and everyone feels appreciated, the students achieve more. And it shows in what the students attain, the job satisfaction of the teachers, and what the public receives. It seems to me that it's time to return to a better negotiating philosophy in District 205. The teachers and the administrators need to be partners to serve the best interests of the students and their parents. Negotiations need to be based on a positive and supportive philosophy or everybody loses. Please think about this style of negotiating for the benefit of all, especially the students. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a last call for Joan Davis. She never came to the podium. Joan? Okay. That concludes the public comment section of our meeting this evening. We will move on. Tonight we have no superintendent communication. I don't think it's because our superintendent doesn't want to communicate, but that he's been busy at committee meetings and other things that we'll be hearing from later. We will move on to the approval of board meeting minutes. Are there any corrections to be made to the minutes of August 10th, August 16th, September 7th, or September 13th meeting minutes? Seeing none, those minutes will stand approved as presented. On to our superintendent's consent agenda. Tonight we have a number of items. We have the traditional personnel report, financial reports, Freedom of Information Act requests. We have the approval of the application for recognition of our schools. We have the approval to post the administrative salaries, compensation report on our website, approval to dispose of surplus equipment, a couple of donations, one to Emerson and to Brian, the approval of the donation from the Foundation for the York Student Enrichment Team grants, and we have a number 4 policies from our policy manual which have minor changes to them, legal references and changes clarifying some wording. Is there anyone wishing to remove an item from our consent agenda for discussion this evening? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Mrs. Hirsch?
I move that we approve the superintendent's consent agenda as presented.
It's been moved by Ms. Hirsch, seconded by Mr. Collins to approve the consent agenda. Mrs. Walsh, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Hirsch?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Stufen?
Yes.
Mr. Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. McDonough?
Yes.
Mrs. Droney?
Yes.
Mrs. Ebner?
Yes.
7 ayes, no nays, that motion carries. We have one item on the superintendent's action agenda, and that is the approval of the resolution adopting the budget for 2011-12. Is there a motion, please? Ms. Hirsch.
That the Board of Education adopt the budget for fiscal year 2011-2012 as recommended, and that the President and Secretary be authorized to enact the resolution and certificate of authorization.
Is there a second? Moved by Ms. Hirsch, seconded by Mr. Collins to approve the 2011-2012 budget. Mrs. Walsh, is there any discussion? Discussion. Seeing none, we did all that earlier this evening. Mrs. Walsh, could you call the roll?
Ms. Hirsch?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Mr. McDonough?
Yes.
Ms. Stufen?
Yes.
Mrs. Droney?
Yes.
Mr. Bloom?
Yes.
Mrs. Ebner?
Yes.
7 ayes, no nays. Mr. Walton, you have your marching orders. Moving on to upcoming.
If I could just, before we go to board communication.
Mr. Purnell.
I just want 2 announcements that I thought I'd interject here. First of all, more good news. The Dork Ukes Marching Band earned a Division I excellent rating for all 3 clinicians at the prestigious Carl Sandburg High School Marching Band Invitational last Saturday night. 7 area school bands performed, and we were one of those with the top rating in pregame and exciting halftime demonstration. So congratulations, York Marching Band. And secondly, one of our own in my cabinet and her staff, the school communication professionals from across Illinois, were honored last Friday for the Illinois School Public Relations Association's annual communication contest and Golden Achievement Awards luncheon. There are approximately 50 districts from across Illinois that submitted a record of 131 entries in 10 categories. And I'm pleased to announce that our Director of Communication, Malia Smith, and Public Relations, and our Webmaster, Kathy Schroeder, were honored with an Award of Excellence for News and Inside 205, the monthly electronic staff newsletter, and received the Award of Merit for last year's redesigned York High School school profile. So I would just like the board, and I'll pass this down, this was in honor of our communication department. I thought it should be noted this evening. So congratulations, Lee, and your staff.
That is quite an honor. we're very appreciative of all that you do for District 205, you and your team. We continue to get comments about the website and the communications that go out, people who send me emails saying, I've never knew so much about the district. It's great. It's easy to understand. It's in my inbox. We really appreciate all the changes that you've brought here, and congratulations again to you and your team. You can. Mr. Collins.
I would just like to add one comment about the York School profile that Malia and her staff rewrote last year. The school profile is something that colleges look at with scrutiny when they're considering one candidate from one high school versus another candidate from another high school. It's crucial for getting kids into the best colleges and universities in this country, and it's crucial for a kid to be able to get into maybe a little better college than they could have without a good school profile. So, Malia, thank you for helping our graduates.
Mr. McDonough.
As a parent, I would like to say thank you. I find your communications clear and concise and very helpful to me as a parent. So let me put the board hat back on there.
Moving on, we have a number of meetings scheduled for the future. We have 3 different committee meetings: the Board Improvement Committee, which will meet on September 28th, Curriculum and Instruction Committee on October 5th, the Performance Management Committee will meet again on October 19th. We also have our regularly scheduled workshop meeting on October 11th and the business meeting on October 25th. That all of these meetings are taking place here at the district center, but the times vary a little bit, so please check our website, right, as to for the specific times. That leads us to board communications. 2 of our committees have met so far to date, and we would like to hear from them briefly this evening. Ms. Hirsch.
Thank you. And the board is split into committees, and our intention is that we are going to take an approach that we're dividing and conquer. We feel as though there's a lot of work that the board needs to do, making sure that we're all up to speed, and so this is really our first cut at this. So there might be some bumps along the road, but I think everybody's committed to doing a good job on this. So here's my first committee report. The Performance Management Committee meeting met for our first meeting. We call it a couple of things on our agenda. Really, the purpose of the committee members are Mr. Bloom, Mrs. Stufan, and myself. And we had our first meeting, and really the intention of the committee is to focus not only on the superintendent's evaluation. As the board, our primary job is to hire and review and work closely with our superintendent and the leadership of the district, but also we expanded the intention of this committee so that we're also looking at performance overall from the entire district perspective. So at our first meeting, we agreed that we're meeting once a month. At our first meeting, we started discussing the superintendent performance measurement tools. Some of the key outcomes that we look to bring back to the full board for consideration are a defined superintendent evaluation process, an actual evaluation instrument that the board will use to evaluate our superintendent, specific goals for the superintendent for this school year that we're already living in, as well as making a recommendation that the board and the superintendent together define and assess performance metric for all performance areas. On our agenda for the next meeting, which will be October 19th, we're going to start a discussion. Well, we have a lot to still discuss in terms of the performance review process for the superintendent. I think we had a good start to that. We'll continue on that, but we're also going to look in the next several months to be addressing as well district level performance indicators and a process for assessing that. Discussion of current performance review process for all personnel at all levels, a process for assessing and addressing organizational health throughout the entire organization, and reviewing our hiring processes and our retention data for our employees. So those are some of the things that we have that we'll be looking at in the next few months.
Thank you. Any questions of Ms. Hirsch or any of the other committee members? You gotta buy this time. The other committee that met was the Finance Committee. They met on September 22nd. Mr. Collins.
The Finance Committee is comprised of Mr. Chris Bloom, Mr. John McDonough, and myself. Our first order of business was to appoint a chairman. So we have appointed 3 co-chairs. You'll be hearing from me for a few months, and then Mr. Bloom for a few months, and then Mr. McDonough for a few months. We decided to split that role. Just in case anyone would like to attend, we then spent quite a bit of time kind of laying out what we would be discussing in the future. I assure you these topics are riveting, and you'll be curious to know what we're discussing in what months, so I'm sure you'll want to attend. We discussed future insurance brokers, and our intent is to interview 4 or more insurance brokerage firms and send out an RFP approximately in November, with a final decision being made in December, with potential for changing the insurance broker that we employ. There were suggestions that we include community members and teachers and other staff on that committee in an advisory role as well. We decided that the district audit would be presented in October, with the full audit presented to the board in I guess in November or later October. I guess we were not specific. The district levy would be presented in October. We want to talk about our credit card transaction fees and how we can potentially save the district money. We want to address a long-term facilities plan. We'd like to present that in November. We want a TIF update to be presented in December, a long-term budget plan in January, and we also wanted to discuss in our next meeting the results of the EBERT meetings that Mr. Pernod is now having. And then we reviewed, finally, as our last thing in the committee meeting, we reviewed the final 2011-2012 budget. I did prepare a 35-slide presentation, but I think Mr. Welton covered that, so I'll spare you.
Any questions for the Finance Committee? Ms. Hirsch.
I just want to make a general announcement first, and then I'm just going to compliment you gentlemen for working on the Finance Committee. But for the public, we have now added 4 ongoing standing committees to our regular board meeting schedule. So the Board of Education typically meets on the 2nd and 4th Tuesday of every month. And now we have added 4 public open meetings to our calendar. So we are now meeting as a board 6 times a month, not all of us, 3 per committee. And I got overwhelmed in terms of trying to manage my own personal calendar on where I was supposed to be when. So our team led by Ellen Walsh, and I'm sure she had some help from Kathy Schrader and maybe Mr. Smith, but you'll notice on our on the website now, you can go to the Board of Education, you can look at our committee structure, and there's actually a calendar of all board meetings. And if you click on, you can see it's the Board Improvement Committee. They happen to be meeting tomorrow. You can click on that date. It will show you their agenda. Once the meeting has happened, you can go and also look at our tentative minutes of our meetings. So we're trying to meet regularly so that you can kind of plan if you are interested in attending those meetings, but we're also trying to expose as much as we can the work that we're doing at our upcoming agenda items. So having read the minutes of the gentleman's meeting on finance, thank you for putting in terms of the facilities discussion. I appreciate the fact that you're looking to create categories in terms of long-term facility plans, large projects that we have to undertake and look at, such as Lincoln, but also some short-term roofs and also ongoing maintenance, because I think that's something that we have not done recently as a board, is consider ongoing maintenance part of our regular expenditures that we need to be budgeting for and looking at. So I'm looking forward to the results of that work and putting our facilities requirements into some kind of categories and making sure that we're paying attention to those and they don't get pushed to the side. So thank you for that.
Are there any other board communications? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mr. Collins, seconded by Ms. Zebner. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Thank you. appreciate your being with us.